back to Gamers Without Borders. 2 series deep into this competition, and we have some new faces joining me in the virtual studio very, very soon. But first, let's talk Complexity and G2. Both of those from the A stream progressing into this next, well, into the upper bracket of this competition. But then we also had Version1, and off the top of my head, I'm losing my mind because I've forgotten already, and it was Space Station. Space Station and Version1, both progressing into the upper bracket as well. Very impressive performances so far. It doesn't really seem like many of these Tier 1 teams are being tested, let's just say. So we've already mentioned that the predictions have been on point so far from our analysts, and I believe, do I have my analysts in the studio with me just yet? I believe I do. Is that Dazarin and Corelli, 2 new faces in my virtual studio? How are you guys?
Doing fantastic. We're doing great. You know, we just got finished watching some matches. They've been solid. And, Jack, we even had a little surprise at the end with that G2 one.
We did, but it wasn't really surprising in the end. G2 came out 3-0. That's kind of what we expected, right?
You've mentioned that the predictions have been pretty on point so far with G2 and Complexity. I mean, the predictions so far in the virtual studio. Does that seems fair to say, Dazarin?
Yeah, listen, Banks. Can I call you Big Banks?
Of course you can. You can call me whatever you want, buddy.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Listen, Big Banks. These guys, they know their stuff, okay? They know their stuff. Everybody knows what they're talking about. We've been watching a lot of Rocket League action, but I do think that this next matchup where, you know, we saw a little bit of debate in the G2 coin. I think this next one that we'll have will definitely, a lot of people will feel one way or another about these teams that are going head-to-head.
Yeah, Corelli, which upper bracket do you think is going to be more intense? We'll focus in on the one at hand very shortly, but G2 versus Space Station or Complexity going up against Version1, which one's going to be more intense?
I mean, listen, I got to say, it's going to be Complexity Version1. It has to be. Because, I mean, listen, you have the Beast Mode and Daniel going on with Version1, but then, of course, Complexity has just been rock solid in their 3v3 ventures so far. This is going to be the big test for Version1. I think really when it comes to 3v3 and 2v2, that's where the big test is going to be happening here. And I think that's why it makes it a better matchup than maybe the one above us.
Speaking of the Complexity match, Dazarin, CRR and AJ going at it. That was absolutely insane. I mean, Atomic showed out on the ones, let's just say, but CRR seems to really be, you know, putting his best foot forward, shall we say.
CRR is on another level today. That is one thing that is for sure about this Complexity squad. CRR stepping up. We've seen individual players over the course of the day do that, right? Atomic was a G2. CRR is a Complexity version of that. And I think if CRR continues on this pace, Complexity are definitely going to need that for this upcoming matchup, because the 2 on that V1 squad between Daniel and Beast Mode, I mean, they're going to prove to be a big challenge for CRRs. If he can step up to the task, then Complexity will go far.
Yeah, I mean, Corelli, both teams have played exceptionally well up to this point. Obviously, we've only had 2 matches on the A stream so far, but, you know, neither of them have really been tested. So which team do you feel is less likely to buckle under the pressure?
This is a good question. That's a really hard question.
Do you feel like you got the experience? Like, is this like an experience question then, really?
It is. Well, I think okay, I'm looking at Complexity, right? They beat Optic Gaming. I think that's a stronger matchup than what Version1 had with Boulevard. Version1's a newer team-ish, but they also are kind of like this semi-super team thing happening. I would say that Complexity is actually less likely to crumble under the pressure at the moment because they've had that experience, especially when it comes to the 3v3. I mentioned that earlier. I think that's going to be actually the pivotal games here that will separate these 2 teams.
Ooh, okay. Well, Dazarin, do you have a favorite element of crew battle format that we've been diving into today? It's nice and refreshing, isn't it? For you guys that typically just do the standard format, do the 3s, you get all this opportunity to dive into other stuff. You guys seem pretty hyped during the 2s, I have to say. But Dazarin, do you have a favorite element?
You know me so well, Banks. It's the 2v2. It's the 2v2, okay? Because it's just something about seeing these players. We all know what they can do mechanically. We see them show their stuff in the 1v1 light. It's a little bit harder to do it in 3v3 light, but 2s is like kind of the best of both worlds there, where you see a little bit of team play combined with individual prowess, and being able to see these guys, I mean, especially in North America, they play 2s a lot, like all the time. So it's really good to be able to see them do it when there's actual stakes and actual pressure on the line. And I'd have to say, for me, especially in this particular series, 2s, chef's kiss.
Ooh, chef's kiss for the 2s. What about yourself, Corelli? Are you going to go with ones? Come on, you got to say ones. Or
Sure, I'll say
no,
ones.
Give me
Why
about
not?
twos. I don't mind. Whatever you want to do.
I mean, I think twos is actually the answer to this, only because of the Daniel in beast mode combo. They're the hottest kids on the block in 2v2 at the moment. Everyone wants to see them play. I've been looking at our A-stream chat while version 1 isn't playing, and they're asking, "Where's version 1? I want to see Daniel in beast mode play." And I don't blame people, right? I mean, that's kind of what this team was built to do, was to have those two players play off each other, and when you put them in a 2v2, you feel like good things are going to happen. So it has to be the 2v2, but I also think the 1v1 will be a lot of fun, especially with the way CRR played against AJ, that he'll have a good matchup against Daniel.
Well, before we dive into the upper bracket, I want to come to you first, Dazarin. We're going to ask you your predictions, because like you said, this is going to be the spiciest match so far of the day. Complexity going up against version 1. Who's your prediction and why?
Oh, this is tough. This is actually so tough. I am going to go version 1, though. I'm going to believe in the super team. That is fair. I feel like Complexity is the favorite, but I do think when version 1 has been waiting for an opportunity to be able to prove themselves as a roster, this is one of the best shots they can do before we get things really rolling here. I want to see Daniel Beast Mode come together, show up, and show everybody just as good as we all think they are. I'm going to go version 1, just off of just knowing their potential and believing in it.
Corelli, I feel like for the sake of the stream, for the sake of the show, Gamers Without Borders here, I feel like I want you to say Complexity, but what's your prediction for this match?
Oh, I'm going Complexity. I was gassing them up before. I think the 2v2 is very interesting to think about, but it's more than just the 2v2. I think a lot of people might be hyper-focusing on that particular game. I think Complexity are going to be better in the 3v3, and that 1v1, you can't count out CR. And I think that people might be underestimating how good the 2v2 is from Complexity, especially in their last matchup where it didn't look all that great. I think that for Complexity, this is a matchup that they can win, and I think they will.
Ooh, I like I'm smelling what you're selling. One more question quickly before we dive in. Are Complexity going to throw Raise Ball in for the ones, or are we going to keep it with CRR? Dazarin.
I think they should keep CRR. I think he's a hot hand, because if they throw a Raise Ball has been looking good today, Daniel will just play around him, to be honest.
Ooh, okay. I guess time will tell. The scene is set and our teams are prepped and ready to go. We've got two new casters jumping in the mix. It's Lemon, Kiwi, and Spaceman. Let's go into our next match of the day. Okay, my spaceship is not ready to go into orbit just yet, okay? As I have all of this space around me. Okay, Corelli,
Abort.
Abort, yeah, abort. Beam me up, Scotty. So, Corelli, I'll come to you first. Right, we've got quite a lot going on today. We've got Space Station, who are going to be playing, I think, at the same time. Will they be playing at the same time, or are they playing a little bit later?
I think they play in an hour.
They play in an hour. Who's going to be playing at the exact same time? Do we have the B stream? What is going to be on the B stream right now?
Yeah, it's Optic and Boulevard on the B stream.
There we go. Okay, let's dive into that a little bit before we jump into our first match. Optic versus Boulevard. What's your kind of predictions? What's your thoughts about that match? Optic kind of came out of the gate swinging a little bit against Complexity, but didn't quite make it. Got Corelli. I feel like you're chomping at the bits, Jumper, with this one.
I am.
Take it.
I am. So here's the thing with this one is that Boulevard was a team that 3-0'd Optic in the open qualifiers. Now, the difference is in those qualifiers, they are, of course, all 3v3 matches. So that's going to be different here in the lower bracket. But I feel like if you're Boulevard, they also took a game off of version 1 in the 3v3. They know they're at least going to get 2 of those. If they can just take a 1v1 or a 2v2 off of Optic, assuming they win the 3v3s, they've proven 3 times in a row already, then they've got to be feeling pretty confident. Of all the matchups they would have gotten in the lower bracket, they've got to feel pretty confident with this Optic squad since they've already proven to beat them in that 3v3.
Also, being the underdog, let's just say, in the competition, the underdog is very, I don't know if it's harsh to say that, but let's just say potentially in this match also against Optic. Optic have been fluctuating a bit. We've been saying that in the studio with Johnny and Jorby as well. Dazarin, do you feel like with them being kind of lower seeded into this match, it just relieves some of that pressure, you know?
You see, I have an interesting feel about it because Corelli brings up a good point where he says, yes, they faced it before. There's a little bit of that confidence going into it. I definitely do think Boulevard have some level of confidence here, but I feel like for Optic Gaming, I'm not saying Corelli in general, but I feel like it's kind of disrespectful to think that they're not going to improve. They're not going to look back and they're not going to say, hey, we have adjustments to make. Yeah, we lost to this team, but let's make sure we're not going to do it again. And then, of course, their first round matchup against Complexity is definitely the perfect warm-up for the day if we're just talking about the head-to-head with Boulevard. Boulevard ended up playing version 1, of course. They lost 3-1. Both teams have lost 3-1 out on the day. But I think in terms of that 3v3, getting things ready to go, Complexity for Optic is definitely that matchup where you're like, okay, now we're set up. Now we have everything in our favor. I think that this one is going to be probably a very quick one. I think Optic will take it in 3.
Ooh, Optic will take it in 3. Prediction for the score, Corelli?
4. 4 for Complexity. I'm sorry, 4 for
oh, sorry, we were talking about Optic
Boulevard. Excuse me. No, I don't know why I said Complexity. I meant Boulevard.
4 for Boulevard?
Yeah.
Ooh.
What?
Hash it out. Go on. Dazarin is absolutely appalled by that.
Okay, I just need to understand. How do you think this is going to go, game by game? Corelli?
Corelli has been beamed up before any of us had the opportunity. Okay, we already spoke about Atomic showing up in the ones. CRR, AJ as well. Is Raiseball going to jump in? What's the other opportunities coming in from this? I mean, for the ones, you've got Daniel coming in for version 1, Dazarin.
Yeah, definitely Daniel for the 1v1 for sure. I think a lot of people are expecting that. The 2v2 for version 1 will have Daniel in beast mode. That's got to be automatic. Com doesn't play ones at all, so I just wouldn't expect that. A lot of people are going to be looking at how they handle it in the 3v3. What's the play style going to be like? You have 2 players, Daniel in beast mode, who are very offensively gifted. They can do a lot with a boost. They don't necessarily play the same style. I think beast mode kind of leads to charge, and Daniel, at least when he was on Space Station Gaming, kind of just played more back instead of just kind of being that tip of the spear for when he was on SSG. Now, how will that come into play when he's on V1? What will that look like offensively and defensively? Going to keep up pressure. This Complexity team, we saw them earlier today. You know that Complexity, when it comes down to making counterattacks and just being very on top of the ball, they can do that super effectively, as well as, I mean, with CRR individually can break teams apart on its own. I think that's why this is kind of close. I mean, Complexity just came off of a major event where, you know, they looked very dominant. Seeing how they go against a version 1 team who didn't make that event, but everyone still rates them so highly, is why all the eyes are on this.
Ooh, I like it. With Gamers 8 on the horizon and all of that money to play for, as well as all of the money that they can donate to charities of their choice in Gamers Without Borders, it really is going to be interesting to see who holds their nerve. But I'm getting word that we are ready to throw into our next match of the day. So please welcome to Gamers Without Borders, Lemon Kiwi and Spaceman.
Why? So wonderful as always, Banks, you handsome tall man in a virtual studio. Hi, it's me, Lemon Kiwi. Welcome to the stream. So happy to have you here. Gamers Without Borders, fantastic event as always. How you feeling?
Hi. It's good. We're in this, digital arena, as Big Banks likes to say. This has been super cool. I mean, this is my first time here, y'all, so I'm sorry I couldn't connect in the first minute, but we got an amazing first match coming up.
We absolutely do. Listen, if we're talking just about how a lot of these tournaments tend to go, right? Because last year we saw a similar format where you have crew battles and everyone's thinking, okay, what are the matchups going to be specifically? How are we going to break down the 1s and 2s gameplay? If that is the case, you expect the permutations to be as potent as they usually are in traditional tournaments. But for situations like this, when we look at a team like Optic, look at a team like Boulevard. If you're looking at Optic, again, we have to be looking at AJ in the 1 spot. When you're looking at the 2s, Magic Bear, usually AJ. Maybe Reddles will make that kind of ego call and be like, look, I want to run point. If that's the case, Optic should have this one in the bag. Granted, they lost to Boulevard to kind of get to this point. Boulevard did take that serious. Granted, it was all 3s, but still, it's a brand new day, Lemon. And when we talk about brand new days, we know that teams with experience usually show up. Optic Gaming is one of those teams with that kind of experience.
I know you really want to talk about Optic. You had all the tweets to say yesterday about, and you're just so excited that they lost. And I mean, that's a lot to say, but you got to cast them, and this is going to be a good match. Boulevard, yeah, they took the L, but hey, they managed to have you know, a good competitive showing. It was that uphill battle against Version 1, as the EU casters have said. But hey, I think ZPS, Zombie Poop Shark, one of the first players I got to cast, had a strong showing individually, a lot of the goal scoring for Boulevard. So we'll see if that comes to light again.
Absolutely. And look, the big takeaway right now for Optic, and maybe they are the focal point of the conversation, we will be talking in depth about Boulevard, what they bring to the table uniquely from other squads, as I believe we're almost ready to get into the game. For all you thirsty little chat members, make sure you also tweet out the stream and follow everything going on with GWB. But for Optic Gaming, look, they come into this tournament with a lot to prove. They've turned around their play style since the winter split had gone underway, but apparently it's complexity in version 1. So it's nice to know that things are back on way and underway. Let's just jump into the action. You know what? Just scrap the opening pre-show. Razebull, CRR, and AJG, fantastic team of 3. Again, one of the uprunners in North America, championship contenders. We just saw what CRR was able to do in ones. For version 1, the big story here, Lemon, when we're talking about what this team brings to the table, right? It's the new addition in V1. It's the newest additive of how Daniel's been able to push his way forward and join the likes of Beast Mode in that 2 spot. Daniel, one of the pickups for V1 in this really brief 2-week off season. It's going to be a very fun time watching V1 get to work.
AJG getting to work. I like to dive in the net. Version 1 had an attempt, and this is going to be, I think, the most exciting match of the day, especially just how much hype I've been hearing about Complexity and Version 1, how dominant of a showing they had earlier on against Boulevard. And Calm was a big part of that success, kind of leading that charge. Daniel up in the air. He's got 2 defenders committing to it and sends it away.
This has been the big litmus test, I think, going from that 2-week kind of break we've had post-major to now, with really the question is, how quickly does this team start rising to the top, right? Because they are favorites in the world. Version 1 now back in championship form. A lot of people would like to consider. But you look at Complexity, who also has made a lot of adjustments as of late. Individually, every single player's gotten better. We always start with 3s in cruise battle, so if you're brand new, you don't really know how this works, start in 3v3. If you lose the first game, which either team it is, then they get to choose the mode we follow up with. So it could be 1s, it could be 2s, and then eventually roll through every single program. And this best of 5 is feisty. You're looking at a team in Complexity that had a great showing prior 2 weeks ago at a major event. Internationally, they've gotten better, and they've cleaned up a lot of the fundamentals in their 3s game, which has really helped propel them towards some of the best in North America. And V1's going to have to go against these Titans if they want to get a championship, even here this weekend.
Complexity just have this wall in front of the net. The fact that Version 1 shot after shot, and this could slip away. Calm, or CRR, sorry, not getting there in time. Razebull down low to CRR into the upper 90. Complexity 2-0.
I mean, this is what you're going to have to deal with here, right? Like, Complexity apply pressure on the counterattack so quickly, and it's usually Razebull who leads the charge. He's the tip of the spear, the point man. Once he gets his first touch, he's going to get physical. You're going to see CRR and AJG fill out and round out those rotations, and that's where this team gets dangerous. Look, it's going to take a while for V1 to get comfortable in their skin, but what better way to do it than in a series in a tournament like GWB, where you have crew battles at your side. Granted, start off on 3s, you're probably favoring Complexity just off of recency bias, but also the chemistry they have. This is a team that's been playing together for a while. And Lemon Kiwi, when we talk about longevity for a variety of esports, specifically Rocket League as well, having longevity as a team usually does pay dividends, especially when you're making mid-season roster changes.
Yeah, that longevity, that experience together, how you synergize for these cruise battle, these 2v2s. Talking about how, you know, I've been seeing some word about Razebull being that good ones player, and Version 1 looking competitive too in that case. 2-0 for Complexity so far. Looks like their defense holds on. Version 1 just looking for their first one. Just seems to not be able to crack through.
About 2 minutes burn here in game 1. Still a lot of time left if you're V1 to circle around, and that's how you get it going. Wondering what the impact might be like for Calm, right? He has to start stepping up individually, kind of an enforcer for V1 ever since that old roster disbanded, and he takes it very quietly around the back line. Defense catches him off guard. Boost management was there, plenty in the tank for Complexity, but they just kind of got caught lacking on the defensive end. The goal line was open, and V1 capitalized, cutting the lead in half.
For now, Complexity keep themselves in the shadow. Or Version 1 keep themselves in the shadow. And for now, Daniel up in the air, trying to set it up to the corner. CR, good challenge. Now what more can Complexity do? They move downfield, pass back and forth. Daniel waits patiently. Razebull couldn't get that final touch. So Version making some space for themselves, grabbing resources though, and Calm now at full boost. Should be able to regain this and send it forward if it wasn't for the teammate getting it back to AJG.
Plenty of resources in the tank for the moment for V1. They're going to have to clamp down defensively to clear this ball away as Raisewell pops it yet again. Another situation where you're looking at the counterattacks begin and cut down quickly as Complexity have made their presence known on the orange side of the field. Raisewell getting physical. Daniel grabs the corner and it's open. So Daniel goes for resources, and I think that small bump cuts the lane just enough. You got Raisewell leading the charge, and there's the bump that basically just opens up a free rotation through the middle of the field. It's wide open for Complexity.
Looking good for Complexity is spoken about to be that high favorite, but this is that crew battle, that 3v3 in the first game, where I've heard a lot of whispers about Beast Mode and Daniel and how good they looked in the 2v2. Even Daniel, would he get like an 8-0 in his 1v1 earlier on today? Super crazy. Calm.
Yeah.
Second touch dribble down to Raisewell, and Version1 applying the pressure. AJG intercepts that pass, but Version1 trying to triangulate onto this blue net. Goes over to Daniel, neutralizes against CRR. Complexity get out.
You got under 40 to play. Now it's crunch time if you're V1, but you're really going to have to slow the roll here. I mean, it's been blistering speed from Complexity, especially in the offensive third. How quickly they've been finding space on the backboard. You got diving saves coming out for V1, but the counterattacks just haven't been there. Holding possession hasn't been either. And yet again, for a second goal in the road, just to start. Complexity have had so much space to work through on the goal line. V1 stretching their numbers thin. There's a commit from Calm, but he doesn't even get a touch. And CRR is just overextending into the back box. He's cheating up on the play and gets rewarded for his efforts.
26 seconds, and that's probably all she wrote. Version1 can now start thinking about what's the 2v2, 1v1 situation looking like. Beast Mode not getting the bounce he wanted off the wall. Complexity's just awareness on that back wall, on the defense, stifling everything Version1 want to cook up. What a redirect! Almost getting to the back of the net. That left post got in the way. And Complexity won't get the fifth one they so desire to really get in the heads of Version1. Another redirect. CRR doesn't get anything from that. And Complexity take game one.
That would be a dumb way to end this game one. Listen, you let that one slip through, you're probably scratching your head hoping, look, we're just going to hit W key, go next. But that's what Complexity do. Of all the teams coming into this tournament, when we look to last year, we're thinking Furia have a good chance to win it. And lo and behold, they do. Complexity, same situation. This is a squad that could make the run. And they have started off hot here in game one. Granted, V1 will have their opportunity to pick what matchup they want next. They want twos, they want threes. I expect we're getting twos, given how lethal Daniel and Beast Mode are together in that mode. That's what everybody wants to see. But Complexity handle their business in really the most standard fashion, and they kind of make quick work of V1. And you'd expect that, as Complexity had complete control. Boost management was theirs at midfield. Counterattacks were lethal. It was airtight defense on the other side. But Lemon, I think the one thing that stood out really is just the lack of possessions for V1. They struggled to clear the ball effectively, find one another on the infield. And when you can't control the ball, you're probably not going to be able to get upfield to score. So it just seemed that V1 needed a little more time in the kitchen to cook things up, as they will have to try again in either twos or ones.
And I heard Stumpy say earlier today that he expected Version1 to look weakest on 3v3s, and they were able to look the best, even having nicknames for Dan and B-Man or B-Mode or something.
That is a Stumpy thing. That is absolutely
And that's when we know that, you know, he's tight. He can use nicknames like that. So 1v1s, 2v2s, they were going to be the best at, and they looked incredible at the last Gamers 8 on those crew battles. And they pointed out their struggles on Version1, and that's to be expected with this new team coming together.
That's the big question. The new team comes together, you get an international competition essentially right off rip, and some people are going to put a lot of stock into this, rightfully so, and others are going to say, look, it's only a weekend or two. There are things they need to work on, but plenty of time to make corrections, and we are getting two. So that's not really a huge surprise. Neither is who they picked. Granted, Daniel and Beast Mode probably the best combination on the planet in this game mode. And we'll see how they are able to find one another as we move into our second game. This best of five, granted, all the games today will be best of fives. And if you're wondering how crew battles works, it's a fun one as Daniel opens up proceedings, and very quickly, Version1 are on the board.
And that's what to be expected with the B-Man, the Dan together. A lot of their goals from the 2v2 they had earlier on today were just off of those passing plays. And they play twos together. They play ranked together. And Racebull and CRR, you saw the hype video. CRR had this montage that I felt could be in the cinema. He's a hyped up player on Complexity. I expect this to still be close. CRR up in the sky, dropping it down like an angel to Racebull before Version1 get in the way.
You know, Lemon, when we talk about twos and ones a lot, obviously it comes down to positioning, right? And boost management is huge, but where on the field do you have your best chance at a shot? Where are you able to control kind of the line of sight and what the defense can and can't give you? The problem with playing against Daniel in beast mode in these kinds of matchups is that every spot is viable, as though they will yet again find an opening in the back, punishing Complexity. But no matter where you are, if Daniel or beast mode have the ball, you have to think a shot is coming, and this transition is just way too quick.
Too quick, couldn't get there in time. Version1? I mean, it's maybe so early to call, but I've been hearing just how
I've seen enough.
I've seen enough here. Let's call it the Version1 1-1 series, but Racebull and CRR, they've had the attempts to try and connect in the box, trying to deliver this right to the cross. It's usually not what gets you goals, but I like the attempt as Complexity fall back.
Oh, the step up for Complexity here is going to be, can we keep the ball on the ground? Because if you can, you have a really good shot with CRR, and the way that he plays, very control heavy, very ISO steps. He loves getting one-on-ones, and he'll usually bully you into corner grabs. He'll work through the wave dash, good recoveries. For Racebull, it's a little bit different, right? Through the air. That's where he can really match the dichotomy of Beast Mode and Daniel. But I don't think that Daniel and Beast Mode are going to give him much space to work in the air. Like, you're going to be looking at V1 to control a lot of these aerials, and that's going to force CRR to have to overcommit in his own style. You're going to need demos to open up the back line. You're going to need that physicality to make things difficult, as Version will have to fall back defensively, but Daniel, of course, is there, Fennec in hand, burning a lot of boost to get back to the midfield, and already clears it away for V1.
Daniel doesn't even need boost at this point. He's chasing people around like he does, just buying time, seeing if you can track Complexity. Beast Mode and CR having a tussle. Daniel ain't 6 foot the way CRR is, so can't climb up to his point. Beast Mode will kick things off for Version1. Racebull, though, didn't catch this one. You set up Daniel bar down. Still trying to clean this up, though. Beast Mode stepping up to Daniel, and 3-0 for Version1.
I mean, it's like a lazy Susan offense. You just pick your poison here. CRR can't even get a great clear. Not his fault. Racebull is waiting for the follow-up chow, and there it is. Beast Mode has no boost, but Daniel certainly does. The kid is under 4 feet tall, but he plays like he's 6'8", and this is the danger of V1, right? Like, if you're going to play them in these off-brand modes, you're very much hoping you keep it close. So far, Complexity have. You're kind of blessed that it's only 3-0, but this is going very, very quickly. 2 minutes still, and some odd change on the clock for Complexity. Got to get some sustained drives upfield. CR will have boost to the corner, but he circled back out for a pass, leaves it now that he has resources, and you're scrambling as your Racebull trying to fall all the way back and get something to give it to CRR on the overextension, but you're not going to get that very often, and V1 handle it.
You're scrambling to get goals if you're Complexity, and it's so tough. I mean, you're depending on those passes. CR up in the air looking for the reset. Daniel shoves them off. Beast Mode robs them dry, and Complexity continue to just shove their way through. CR at the midfield should be able to catch this. Beast Mode not even jumping for that. Complexity with 90 seconds to match that score. It's feeling unlikely. Everything they start up doesn't finish off well.
Your number 2 seed in Version1 coming into this one. And it's no surprise going up against the number 1 seeds. You really have a heavyweight fight on your screen. Opening kickoff, it was all of Complexity. They take game 1. Following suit, it's been the boys in purple. They have just absolutely dominated this twos. No surprise there, really. But I think one of the big takeaways is just how little control Complexity have had in this. I mean, granted, the aerials are always going to favor Version1, as Racebull puts something dangerous towards the net. A bit of a charge in that one. Beast Mode gets the call now, gets it over CRR, and is he going to 1v2 this through? No, Racebull will dive into the opposite post and keep it out. Does just enough to give Complexity a chance, but there's been no counterattack. There's really been no offense, couple of whiskey shots, but that's about it. Racebull double tap, saved away.
No, Racebull's been also a highlight on this team, and a lot of what people thought would be the highlight in terms of 2v2s, even 1v1s. Maybe Complexity will opt for that later, but Version1 have kept a tight seal on this game 2, and we'll bring them back. But what's going to be the story for game 3? Well, once we return to 3v3s in Version1, they keep on getting goals.
Yeah, look, you're glad you're going back to baseline here. I mean, just great job on the rebound there, picking it off the board. But this one, it's what you think, chat. It's probably done. It's a 4-0. It's probably going to be a V1 win, which means we're guaranteed 4, but we're also guaranteed more play out of complexity because we know how good this team is in threes. And for V1, let's shift the conversation over to them now. So you've stolen away, or not even, you can't even really say steal. You get game 2. We expect it, whether it was going to be 2s or 1s. You earned it, absolutely. So now the question becomes, what are the adjustments made in threes? Because complexity's had their number, and they're the better team as of now. What can they figure out in that traditional mode to change the course, the narrative here? We'll get one for the road, but it's going to be a tie series. I'm curious what the adjustments might look like from V1.
Yeah, that's going to be the tough one. Are Complexity just going to win the threes and Version1 just going to win the 2v2 ones? Is that the prediction? I mean, we're in for a long series if it does go that way. I feel bad being the player that, like, you know, you can't win the threes, so is the third person the problem? Is it, what, like 7 seconds left, though? Version1, at least, can go into game 3 with a lot of confidence, and Complexity can shake this one off, maybe expecting this to go this way or maybe not. But hey, I'm in for a good series.
Dan Mode wins another 2v2. Oh my God, who saw it coming? Not us. Yes, absolutely, it's V1. Of course it is. They're taking this one by storm. Poignant as ever, potent as ever. Tie series 1-1 on your screen. Complexity open things up in the 3v3s. Handle their business, but so do Version1. Daniel and Beast Mode controlling so much of the sidewall, watching those inner lanes. They cut the rotations of Complexity. They force them to constantly have to fall back in transition to get possession back. We're talking about popping it out of that last defender, forcing them into a long rotation when they're overextended. I mean, it's a highlight reel. The entire game is a highlight reel for Daniel and Beast Mode, but it was just way too easy, Lemon.
We talked about the offense of Version1, but you can't underestimate what Daniel was doing on the defense. A lot of Complexity trying to complete those passes were intercepted by Daniel, and you just couldn't really cook up something before Version1 squashed it. But we go back to 3v3s to see, are Complexity truly the better 3v3 team, or are Version1 kind of warmed up now?
I mean, it's like, okay, you're tied 1-1, so the benefits are if you lose this, you're V1, you're guaranteed ones up next, but you're probably going to face CRR, and that would be a very tough matchup for anybody on V1. But for Complexity, it's like if we lose this, granted, we don't have a strong game mode other than CR and 1's coming up next, but if we just play 3v3s, we'd probably win this series. So it's really a win-win for both teams. We're probably going the distance. I'd love to go to a game 5. I'm sure the chat would like it as well. The players probably not so much, but my goodness, it's already been a doozy of a series. Tied up 1-1. We'll get into game number 3, back to our standard format. And for Complexity, what worked last time is the continuous pressure upfield, very reminiscent of how G2 really had a stranglehold on North America for a while. Complexity, so good individually, but even better finding one another. They are selfless with the ball.
And AJG and Calm trying to prove, I am not the problem. I am an addition to this equation, okay? Here to show it. I know, I am the solution, at least on the side of Calm, which is a fantastic player in threes. I thought a lot of Version1's 3v3 success was due to Calm on that front line, so AJG against Daniel does bump him off the ball. Still CR recovers, trying to connect to Ray's Bull, intercepted again. Version1 won't let this stand by.
And, you know, Calm has an interesting role to play this season because there's always going to be pressure on Version1 to get back to kind of the runs they were making last year. Title contenders, regional champions, sure. But with the addition of so much offense in Daniel, and clearly the opportunities that blossom because of the duo-ship of Beastman and Daniel, Calm now has to stay as the enforcer, right? Like, not only is the individual skill getting called into question, more so just we want to see more of it because we know how good he is, but also becoming an IGL, right? Guiding the ship of Beast Mode, guiding Daniel, especially such a young player that he is. Calm has to kind of step up in maybe that Reddles role where he kind of takes charge, tells everybody how they need to orchestrate themselves on the field, be a lightning in a bottle in those comms, but also just, no pun intended, really get this team going as AJG puts the absolute dagger from the setup from Ray's Bull.
A redirect out of nowhere, too. Ray's Bull's like, I kind of got this. I don't got this. I need help. And AJG centers that ball out where otherwise would have gone too wide. Complexity with the first goal took some minutes to get it done. Version1 keeping them at bay. We'll see how Calm can make a difference. Has Beast Mode to the left. Actually, Beast Mode has left the picture, so Calm's not getting any help here.
I mean, if you're version 1, you're happy that CRR at the moment only has like 26 score, probably more than that now, up to 28. You've kept him out of the game so far, but you do have to deal with Raise Bull. Again, back to 3s, very different than 2s, where spacing becomes a problem. You have more opportunities and chances in the air in 2s and 1s, but when you're playing against a full-fledged complexity, it is tough, man. We've seen it on the international stage, and so far the pressure's been overwhelming. Finally, they'll break through their own side of the field. Beast mode towards the backboard. CRR will clear very precariously and leaves it for his teammate to get the call. And with that, here comes the attack now. Complexity have the ball in their possession, and it's a nice center to CRR, but you can just see the pressure right now that Complexity have. V1 can't break out.
It's version 1. There's so many cooks in that kitchen that no matter how cool you look for Complexity, getting the reset, passing it, ball landed on the ground right in the hands of version 1. Still looking for that tying goal. Plenty of time to do so. Beast mode up in the air, bounce in the box. Calm is completely surrounded, but Daniel cleans it up, and we have a tie game.
And that's what you need. You need to start pulling the defenders off the ground. Someone like CRR, force Raise Bull to make the challenge, burn all of his boost to get out of the play, and all of a sudden, things look up for V1. It's turning up V1 very quickly, and we wanted to see the adjustments, right? How quickly can they get down the field, hold on to possession? That was the big question after Game 1. Game 2, different situation. Off the kickoff, though, was a win by V1 before Beast Mode tried to follow up and continue. The extension there as Raise Bull escapes through a demo and keeps his whereabouts moving. AJG, dangerous shot, easily saved. And now we're looking for V1 to clamp down defensively on the backboard, get the ball back out to midfield, and begin their counterattack.
Starts with Raise Bull. AJG thought the pass was there. I thought so too, but version 1, they won't let you do anything. But what can they do on the offense? I mean, version 1 have held that wall pretty high, and Calm can kick things off. Well, he got kicked in the face. The demo is going to remove him from the picture. So version 1, 2v3, Daniel 1v3 actually, and he at least can place the ball into the corner where Beast Mode will see how they crack through Complexity, but it's a quick turnover.
You know, one of the things that Complexity have worked on extensively, I think during the offseason, during the majority of the winter split, was really limiting the mistakes on their counterattacks, forcing those double commits that had plagued them for so long. They've changed that. They have worked really hard at cleaning up the fundamentals, and it's paid off, as we almost saw what could have been a leading demo to an opening goal with a 2-1 advantage, but we're still sitting tied 1-1. 40 seconds still on the clock. AJG has to fall back, and we're waiting to see when maybe Raise will start to open up and really get physical, bring back some of those bumps and demos that Calm has been successful with, as V1 have numbers up, a 2v2. We'll see if they can play it.
Almost a cool turnover for version 1, but 2v2 gets stifled. Complexity rotate back, chance for CRR. Beast Mode pops it up in time, set it away. Beast Mode again, double tap over to Daniel. Raise Bull kind of redirected this over to AJG. Got this 2-on-1 for Complexity. Demos left and right. Is this the red carpet for Complexity in last seconds? No. We'll be heading into overtime as Calm will land this on the ground. Actually, it is being kept up.
Okay.
Chance for version 1 to strike.
Okay.
Tough one, 2 in the nets. CRR blocks the first one. AJG lands it on the ground. OT starts.
Yeah. AJ's like, please just get this down, okay? Like, we don't need to worry about the counterattack. Get it down. But CRR is right there following, spying on the kickoff. He finds the touch, quickly denied. Sent back out, Daniel in the clear. Numbers pressing. But here it is yet again, the defense of Complexity, how quickly they transition from hold to recovery to attack. Here they go. Raise Bull wins another 50 somehow, and CRR gets up just in time.
25 seconds in, version 1 start their drive. I believe that was version 1 that got demo 2. So they kind of took a second to gather themselves in the midfield. Now Raise Bull just contesting this Calm, shoving people out of the way, making the space. But version 1 have to climb high for this one. So they do. They grab the boost to at least set it into the corner. But Complexity have these solid clears that burn a lot of time for version 1.
You got so much in the tank right now if you are V1. So you want to keep this pressing. You want to keep this offense going. And it looks like that will be the call. They're going to play it towards the back wall. Nicely done. Daniel was ready and waiting for the pass. Daniel, 3 in the tank, none, looking for the pinch. I like the idea, the creativity from V1 certainly coming out in full force. The offensive third's been all of theirs to start. This OT has been brutal as Complexity try to break back out yet again. Raise Bull looking for the pass. It's going to be wide, and you'll have to play it low. V1 have a chance now. Daniel on your screen.
And Daniel, has a chance there. CR Almost the third imposter there, but he's okay. Raise Bull cracks through Calm, Beast Mode, clears, and follows up with it. CRR gets it out of his hands too. It's Version1 just taking a break, a breather to stabilize at this point. Almost 2 minutes into overtime, and it's been so back and forth. But a chance for CRR. Now I can't get to the ball in time.
I mean, the fact that CRR makes that stop in open space with no boost is a miracle for Complexity. That shows you how good he's been as of late, how good this Complexity team is at trusting one another. As Version1 still just trying to find their way forward, puncture that backboard. And they've done it time and time again. They just haven't closed the deal. Raise Bull in a foot race through the side, gets deleted. Advantage here for V1. Backboard double tap. Wow, we're committing. It's a two-person job on the back wall, and V1 are not rewarded for their efforts, but you gotta like the call.
Yeah, I know you did. I thought you were like, wow, we're doing this?
I did not expect that double commit. All right.
I know you sounded surprised. Version1 too. It's Beast Mode on the ball again with Daniel. This goes over. CR kind of waiting for his moment to strike. As Calm approaches, all three of Version1 waiting for their moment. Going to the corners, though. We need to center this ball out.
I mean, they're not getting clear touches up until now. Complexity, we're just trying to play it low to the corner. Like, they haven't been clean. Could be a boost problem, but really more just the pressure from V1. I mean, we're giving it to Daniel, letting him get roams in the air. Beast Mode backing up, just cutting down the lane, intercepting a lot of these touches. The 50 win. Raise Bull has to burn it just to stabilize. Numbers around, you have a 2v1 trying to move up the right side of the field, and there's the clear. Most the redirect. Everybody saw it coming from a mile away. It's still just as deadly. You got to be joking. If you're Complexity, just hold on for dear life.
Version1, oh, Beast Mode, trying to get in front of this ball. It's got so much speed, couldn't cut it, while Complexity were maybe having a gap in the net. 3.5 minutes into OT. Calm to the corner, doesn't get the bounce off the wall he hoped for. Complexity reading this offensive Version1 well. Complexity up the wall, 34. Beast Mode hesitating on how to approach this box, and that's a bounce that's tough to control if you're Version1. Now getting a sense of it.
He thought it was twos again. It's fine. He's like, oh, we're just going to take this game over from the sidewall. It's a bit of a miracle the Complexity have been able to hold on in this game with how much V1 has thrown at the board. Like, every single dart you have, they've shown it, they've ripped it, and Complexity have withheld that pressure. They've withstood. There's more of the operative word there. CRR misses his touch. Raise Bull falls in, just kind of clears the play. It's a poke check through the side and out of the corner. Complexity trying to build some momentum, but quickly denied and taken away. The pass from Daniel on the ceiling. Beast Mode. We're stabilizing. Anybody else there for V1? Daniel flies through the corner, doesn't get the boost grab, but still keeping himself involved on the play. And every time you think you're out of the woodwork, here comes a massive lumberjack in Beast Mode and Daniel with an axe to the absolute backside of Complexity. I don't know how they're not able to find this goal, but the defense is standing strong.
I felt like Daniel also didn't have the room to operate. I think a defender got in the way of him trying to cut it to the left, but Beast Mode makes it happen for Version1 while all the defenders are there.
Did you call it, chat? Did you get your predictions in for the time? I don't think you did. 4:46, V1. Fight tooth and nail through a miraculous defensive hold of Complexity. A 2-1 win in OT. And they take threes. More importantly, they take game number 3 now to go up 2-1 in the series, which means we will be seeing ones coming up next. You expect CRR to be on the field, but my goodness, the Complexity to put up a fight. Version1. That's the threes we can expect. That pressure against the Complexity defense. My, oh my, oh my, do we have a series on our hands?
And we all thought that Version1 didn't have the threes dog in them, but it took a 5-minute OT, and I felt like I heard myself say Version1 so many times because that's how many offenses we were watching from them. Complexity's counterattacks were strong, but not the pressure mounting the way that Version1 had at the end. It was bounce after bounce, and the defensive Complexity just panicking on how to get this out.
This is the type of pressure that V1 had a year ago. They didn't have for a while. And now with Daniel in the lineup, I mean, there are so many times in this game where Complexity are throwing everything they have in the kitchen sink at the backboard, and we're watching Daniel and Beast Mode play twos. They're just playing twos upfield, and Calm's just making sure we get boost, staying as an island, getting the midfield grab. It's taking resources away from Complexity. Complexity then can't break out, they can't get long clears, and then they can't sustain themselves upfield because they don't have the boost. That's all thanks to Daniel and Beast Mode and what they're able to do. Calm, you wonderful man. This is a good team. This is a good time to be a V1 fan, because if they're doing this against Complexity in threes, Lemon, I gotta tell you something. When it comes down to ones, oh, we're putting Razebull in. Okay, so Razebull's gonna be playing ones instead of CRR. Interesting choice. But when it comes down to ones, even if you're V1, you're like, look, we just took down Complexity in threes. If it goes game 5, we're feeling confident.
Feeling good. Especially if Razebull's feeling themselves. He put me in, coach. I'm not going to question. I don't think any coach questions a player that's feeling good, at least mechanically. Put him in against Daniel. Didn't Daniel get like an 8-0 game earlier? Like, he was putting on a
he was just kind of having his way.
Having his way.
He was doing his thing.
Well, it's all up to Daniel and match point for version 1 in Complexity. They said, Razebull, if you don't win this, we hate you, and we're going to the lower bracket.
I mean, the El Toro is El Toro for a reason, and one of the strengths of Complexity has been their kickoff game. They've been very good at recovering with the wave dashes and kind of getting back in position, especially when it comes to the ones game. CRR, ground-heavy offense for Razebull. You can chow him in the air, and he'll be right up there to put a hand up. He will give you everything he has. So you're probably thinking, why aren't we seeing CRR? It's because Razebull is just as good, especially in the likes of competing against Daniel. But that's a quick shot, denied as well. The positioning for the moment is Daniel will fall back for boost, and Razebull can't hesitate here. He needs to come up and meet the challenge once we start to stretch laterally, as Daniel will be taking all of those back grabs, and he has kind of his chance here to make his mark on this push.
Yeah, Razebull has good patience, went for the challenge and was like, never mind, backed away enough, had the spacing to pre-jump and stop a lot of these shots that Daniel has been putting on. Razebull can't even get close. Daniel just being aggressive early, which is great to see. Daniel wants the second touch. Razebull can't get enough air, and it's the first one for Daniel.
I mean, Daniel works through this bump here, and right here, I mean, he's got him. You just flip it. Razebull has really nothing else to give. 3 boost. Once Daniel moves through that bump, it's GG on that goal. Daniel got him in the post, easy enough. And here we go off the kickoff. A 1-0 lead for Daniel and version 1. Recovering nicely, as Razebull should save this, he will. But here we go. Daniel, what do you have in the tank? What do you have in store for us? As one of the best ones players you're going to see across all of the tournament. And we'll see how Complexity, and more importantly, Razebull can respond.
That title and that experience from Daniel sure makes Complexity scared and worried that, bar down. That Complexity didn't win that 3v3 that a lot of people would have predicted they were stronger at. And even version 1, the Stumpy said earlier that would have been their weakest mode in terms of crew battles.
Sure.
Version 1, Daniel only up by 1. So Complexity, Razebull, it's a lot of wait and see from him. It feels like Daniel can just manipulate this whole game, and Razebull just kind of sits there and watch.
Holds the reset. No, not gonna happen this time. Wasn't sure if Razebull got bumped or not, but it doesn't really matter. So when Daniel doesn't like the second approach, he's gonna bring it all the way back to his own side of the field and grab resources yet again. Razebull is gonna start recognizing that as he comes up a little bit over aggressive, but you need it. Make Daniel respect you a little bit more as he takes it from the side wall. We've seen this before, trying to carry over, but can't quite finish the job. Razebull right back into the play and puts this one towards the side wall.
Now can finally collect some boost. I really like Razebull's saves. Daniel caught lacking, but Razebull's so deep in the net that couldn't recover and score while the gap was there. Now Razebull can just play cat and mouse. Daniel gets in front. Razebull off the wall. Air dribble. Where's Daniel to be found? Jumps. Let's pop this up in the box. Let's see if... No, Razebull can't clean that up yet.
Yeah, if he cuts too sharply, Daniel probably pokes it free, and then you're having a foot race to your own side of the field, which is probably not going to go well. So nicely done by Razebull to circle back. He'll wait and fight for his chance here as Daniel reads it perfectly. But these recoveries from Razebull are kind of what the staple is about his one's gameplay, right? His ability to get back onto the ball, hold possession, and he doesn't get pushed off of his screen quickly. He'll work through a lot of pressure to keep his one's game intact. So here he goes yet again. Soft flip, beautiful bait.
Daniel just was on the sidewall and was trying to jump in from that moment. Wasn't sure what Razebull was doing and couldn't get enough speed or air on that jump. So, hey, Razebull gets it tied up.
This has been one of those back and forth tug of wars. Look, you'd be hoping like, okay, we're going to get like a 10-9 game, right? The defensive style of Razebull and then just the spatial awareness of Daniel oftentimes when he doesn't like the look he's given or the one he creates for himself, it's not super surprising that we're sitting here 1-1 with under 60 to play. Razebull going to circle in and scream for that boost. He gets it. Can he poke it in time? Can Daniel get there? I don't think so. Nope. couldn't cut the rotation. Beautiful read by Razebull and recognizes the opportunity.
We've just seen Daniel with the ball so much that as soon as he had a moment to breathe, Razebull identifies that while Daniel was grabbing boost and couldn't rotate back into net, like you said, 2-1 for Razebull. So I guess everything is possible. Complexity losing a 3v3, maybe Version1 losing a 1v1. This bracket is really exciting. 37 seconds, though. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Daniel, reset. Razebull playing that patience so well. Gets a touch on the ball.
You mess with the bull, you get the horns, but Razebull, unimaginably gifted ones player. You can't say enough adjectives about this kid. Same with Daniel. I think we're seeing maybe some of the best ones gameplay that we've ever seen in Rocket League history when it comes to the past 2-3 years, as these players have stepped up their game. But Daniel will be able to circle this one around. No pressure here. He's got to go all the way the length of the field, though. 100 in the tank. Daniel has to call game for the OT. The reset. Can he bully down? No. Razebull puts a hand up and shuts this one down where it stands. A 2-1 win for Razebull and Complexity, and a very close one at that. It's game 4 going to Complexity, tied up 2-2, and everybody wanted it. Now we got a game 5.
Yeah, game 5, back to 3v3. I was on the edge of my seat, though, at the end when Daniel had the 100 boost and he was flying through the air, but we've seen so many offenses from Daniel, and it felt like Razebull was so solid on the defense. Of course, now he gets exposed as I'm talking about Razebull's defense, but overall, Razebull is the one who got the lead kind of halfway through the game, and that's how it stayed that way. And Daniel, the offenses drifted off in the second half.
I mean, I'm just glad we got a 2-1 game. I know a lot of people were probably hoping for it to be a little bit more lengthy. You're thinking, okay, we're going to get 8-9 goals, but that is the power of Razebull and Daniel both in those ones. Welcome back. We're also talking about crew battles, which means we're back to 3s. And at this moment in time, we're going to Champions Field, which just means that we've each gotten a piece on both sides. If you're looking at Version1, they have found 3s in game 4. Game 3, that would make sense. And if you're looking at Complexity in game 1, of course, they opened up the proceedings with a very strong showing. And again, what worked for Complexity has continued to work, but V1 have made adjustments, and it seems like they've given more space to Daniel and Beast Mode to really open up, express themselves offensively, just giving them space down the field to work. And let me give you, that's what worked in game number 3. They just had so much pressure, even in the OT.
I hope Razebull gets the pizza party he deserves after keeping Complexity in this series. Just with having, like you said, to go up against one of the best ones players around of Daniel, the way that Razebull is able to win that, keeping Complexity in the game 5, you go to a 3v3 where this is the bread and butter of Complexity. But of course, Version1 is who won that last time, I believe. So, hey, who knows what's going to happen. It took a 5-minute OT to settle that in our last 3v3. So watch out for Version1.
Watch out for Version1 indeed. Look, when we're talking about favorites for this tournament, people are going to be, if you're not super familiar with Rocket League and you're looking kind of the big names, you're thinking, oh, wow, like Optic and G2. But if you've been watching Rocket League as of late, you should know that Complexity for North America and Version1, just based off of the roster move alone, are going to be the favorites for North America. G2 can always show up and win any event, but Complexity's been on a tear. They are absolute dogs. Version1 made one of the most incredible roster moves. Granted, everybody was kind of expecting it to come, but nonetheless, it happened. And you get Daniel and Beast Mode together. I mean, you could write a book about it. But here we go. Into game number 5. Champions Field on your screens. Welcome in. It's going to be a fun one. 3's up. Let's get into it.
Oh my God, and it starts off hot for Version1. Daniel says, put me in, coach, for the next ones, because I'll win it this time. Gets his revenge in 3s. Beautiful double tap.
Oh, the pizza party is actually happening for Version1, Lemon Kiwi. You were right.
Yeah,
you were absolutely right, but it's the other team. They're getting one right now. So if you're in the other classroom, start banging on the walls, cause a distraction, go in and steal the food. Because I don't know if you're going to be able to survive the onslaught that is coming your way if you can't slow down Daniel in Beast Mode, as Calm will pop it free. But Complexity have much more to worry about, which is getting on the other side of the field.
Calm just got thrown off the screen there. It's like, you talked about that Calm setting up Beast Mode and Daniel on the front lines, and, well, if you just shove him into a locker, you can't do much. But Complexity, they're hungry for that tying goal, as I'm pretty hungry talking about that pizza. Razebull off the backboard. Daniel making sure no one's in the box to capitalize on that moment. But Complexity recovering the midfield. It's kind of a tip over from Beast Mode. Give Version1 a chance.
1 minute burned, 1 goal earned. Version1 off to a hot start. They've been able to build upon it as well. And it's the same kind of continuous pressure you saw in Game 3. If you're just joining us, you've missed a very good series. 3's gameplay has been electric. The 2's has been what you expect from version 1, but the 1's was Razebull standing strong against Daniel. A very tough matchup to say the least. But here we go. What do you have in the tank? What do you have available as Razebull? Everything in the toolkit. He's deadly on his own when he's fighting through pressure. Usually setting up AJG and CRR, if not taking a shot on his own. Is AJG been a bit quiet this series? Going to take it on his own? And instead, we have a 2v2 at midfield, but it looks like V1 have won this battle.
For now, Razebull and all of Complexity trying to be a bit louder this series, and when it matters the most in Game 5, AJG says, I'll be loud, I'll be barking down the street. 1-1 for Complexity now.
I mean, you got a nice recovery from V1, but it's that infield pass right there. It's the boost control from Complexity to get power on that shot. CRR just puts it on a silver platter, and AGG comes out from the island to finish the play. If he misses, you already got CRR rotating out. You got Razebull on your back left. You got numbers up, and that's the Complexity you're used to. CRR through the corner. Pre-jump read, and Complexity are pulling out all the stops here to put V1 on their own backline as Calm is fighting through traffic, but Razebull keeps it going. Here comes AJG, CRR at the midfield, and V1 have to clear.
Said Calm fighting through traffic. He's fighting against his demons in that corner. He just can't seem to get a touch on the ball without Complexity moving him out of the way. That's what Complexity are going to have to do to be physical with it. CR starts the drive again. AJG connecting. Daniel off the back wall won't make it easy. Razebull sets it up in the upper 90, blocked by beast mode, and Complexity recover again. The pressure mounts as Calm at least puts it to the corner, but not able to follow it up yet as Razebull and friends centering it out, but version 1 seem to have stabilized.
And this is where CRR, my goodness. Let's just shut the sentence down, Spaceman. It doesn't matter. Daniel, a ridiculous pass to beast mode and a flip, and see ya. Where are you going? It's free real estate. 2-1 V1. Wow.
Yeah, slaps the roof of that net. You can fit so many goals in this one. Version 1 going into the second half, 2-1. As Daniel and friends, now it's the tussle and the hustle in the midfield. AJG able to receive passes well, was able to get on the board earlier on for Complexity. As the setup continues for Complexity, but version 1, they're patrolling their backboard. They have good spacing, good coverage of their orange half, and Complexity can't get a good setup going yet.
I mean, this is just the benefits of V1 was always their offense, and now you're saying, okay, the offense is multiplied times 5 since when they used to have. Their defense is good enough to keep them alive against the likes of Complexity, and they're just brutal on their counterattack. So quick on the transition, the handoff to someone like Daniel, to beast mode, these infield cuts. How it can demoralize the defense, and CRR is burning everything just to get it back to the midfield. This is where Complexity can start to struggle. Maybe we bring it back down to earth for the moment as Razebull goes hunting, and he finds one. CRR trying to get it to AJG. AJG running second on deck. Another win on the 50, and beast mode holds possession for V1.
Complexity fighting their way through the left side. CRR to the right. Hits the post. Razebull looking for recovery. Beast mode challenges. Calm versus AJG. This 50's up in the air. And this is so neutral between the two. Version 1 getting the last touch to hopefully clear. Last 45 seconds, version 1 doing everything to hold on to the lead that they have. An insurance goal wouldn't hurt either.
It's a big clear. Need to hold possession here if you're Complexity. You'd love to kill the clock and send this one to OT, but last thing you want is space downfield for Beast Mode and Daniel to get working. And already Daniel's working off the backboard, falls back down to the ground. Beast Mode has his teammate ready, just cuts it down on the 50. It's just enough to stall out the play. Recovered, but Razebull no boost. Can only do what he can. Under 10 to go. And it looks like for the moment, unless AJG can cut in the lane, this one might be done, Lemon Kiwi.
Last chance, and Razebull has to go all the way down. They don't have a lot of boost to work with either, just a hope and a prayer. And version 1 will be taking game 5 and going to the upper bracket final to face a winner of G2 in space.
Wow. Well, you think in the 3s you're probably favoring Complexity, but it seems that version 1 have shown up to this event. And if they're playing like this in 3s, they're essentially unbeatable in 2s. And 1s is take your pick. What poison do you want to take today? Because it's been all of V1. ever since they decided to make this roster change. Complexity, one of the best, but V1 are on a different level right now in threes. Their offense is way too dangerous. And no matter how good you are defensively, V1's going to find a way to score. Look at the OT. Look at this Game 5, for example. Sample size is there. And V1 looked very, very good.
I don't know, for the analysts, it was tough to predict who was going to come out of the series, just considering Complexity, I guess, quote, had the better opponent. I'm giving props to Optics, so we can be friends now. And Version1, I heard Stumpy and friends just say how, you know, much more Version1 were favored over Boulevard, so you weren't sure how good Version1 were going to look in this bracket, but they showed up in threes, they showed up in twos and ones, well deserved of that Game 5. But hey, Complexity put up a solid fight. It was just getting the offense threatening enough. I think the defense was very good, but then you got Daniel hitting double taps on you, so what can you do when he can run ones and threes?
I mean, you're absolutely right. Like, look, there was enough to get everything going to get the ball rolling, but legitimately, like, V1 are just on a different plane right now. And speaking of somebody who's in a completely different plane, it's Banks. He's over in the studio. We have to break this one down, brother. I mean, that is a great segue, Banks. I'm just telling you right now. I love when I get to throw to you, but I believe he's almost there. If not, we're still going to talk about V1 and Complexity, because while we put the scouts out for our lovely host, Complexity, look, you drop down, you're out of the tournament, go to lower rack, go to the lower round. You're still alive here. But if V1 are playing like this, Lemon Kiwi, I would be scared if I'm G2. I'd be scared if I'm Space Station, specifically with G2 very vulnerable in some threes. I mean, that we could be looking at a V1 stomping to the grand final.
Ooh, I mean, Version1 were made for this, and we go check in with Banks.
Thank you so much, Lemon Kiwi and Spaceman. Don't worry, Spaceman, that was the segue of the century. I absolutely loved it. An electric series between Complexity and Version1. I would say our first upset, question mark, Dazarin?
Huh? Wait, hold on. Big Banks. Listen. I remember I came on this broadcast and I had Version1 winning the series. The only person who should be upset is that man Jack right there. Because he got it wrong. I had this in the bag. Now keep in mind, I may have been a little slow. I was a little nervous about the 1v1. They should have did it in Game 2. Johnny was right about that. But guess what? When it came down to it, clutch time, game time, Version1 show out like I knew they would. Complexity finding a little bragging. It's okay, Jack, but V1 was taking that.
Have you learned your lesson? Thanks. Have you learned your lesson?
I quite enjoyed it.
Don't give him the ammo.
Keep the shades on for the rest of the show. I enjoyed it.
I will.
Corelli, expectations are obviously high for Daniel and Beast Mode, and they delivered.
Mm-hmm. They did. I mean, they took care of business when they should have. Expectations were even higher for Daniel, right, in that 1v1. And Daz was right, talking about when's the better time to maybe take that 1v1 when you drop the Game 1, maybe in Game 2 rather than Game 4. But that's a lot of pressure on the favorite there. And a matchup that was clearly a lot closer than people gave it credit for. Razebull's a fantastic one player in his own right. So I think for Version1, I think they're happy that they came out on top here. Complexity, it might not be the last time we see them against Version1 here. We could have the run back.
Oh, that would be interesting. Well, the highlights brought to you right here by Aramco. And, the second round of threes looked pretty dangerous for Complexity. But Beast Mode just banging on the door until eventually he smashed it down, Dazarin. But then Razebull answered back in the ones.
Yeah, again, it goes back to it. I was even keeping tabs on a couple of watch parties. They were saying that Daniel looked a little nervous in the 1v1s, and I think that was the whole big point about Johnny Boy's point, was saying that if it's a 2v2 situation, I think you still get the same result, whether it's Game 2 or Game 4. But when it came down to that 1v1 between Razebull and Daniel, that pressure of being able to close out the series, definitely you could see it kind of get to Daniel. Daniel's definitely a little bit more free-flowing in the 1v1 department. It did feel like he was a little stiff and made some mistakes that we haven't normally seen him make in particular one environment. So I think it was just a little bit of pressure there, but the team did end up being able to bring it back when it came down to the Game 5. That being said, though, we've seen Complexity all day today. Even with a tough competition against Version1, they're still poised. They still look very solid overall. And I think people are still going to expect them to make a run, but you got to give your props to Version1 for the win.
Yeah, this is where experience, I feel like, comes into it, because even though Complexity have been sent down into the lower bracket for the lower bracket quarterfinals for their next matchup against potentially Koi or Accelerate, we'll get to that in a minute, I feel like Complexity have that poise, they have that experience to be able to carry themselves out of the lower bracket to potentially run it back. But speaking of Koi versus Accelerate, Corelli, what are your thoughts on that? We're going to have that, I think, on the B stream a little, well, shortly, but what's your thoughts? And they're going to be going up against Complexity.
It's a tough, listen, nobody wants to play Complexity in the lower bracket, that's for sure. In regards to Koi and Team Accelerate, I mean, listen, this is, I think Koi definitely impressed. I mean, I think Daz and I both agreed that they were actually pretty impressive against G2 in those 3v3s. And again, I think it's important, regardless of what they do in any other game mode, to win those 3v3s. Because Koi, if they play like they did against G2, against Team Axel, then I think they're going to come out on top, at least in those 3v3s. They've got that substitute in Cosmic for the 1v1s as well. Toasty has been out there for the 1v1s in Axel, or for Team Axel. I feel like Cosmic is just better. So I think Koi should feel pretty confident, but yeah, you're looking forward to pass this matchup going up against Complexity. You can see on your screen right now, that is a massive wall in front of you in the lower bracket round 2.
It really is. That lower bracket spicing up already. We've got Complexity and Optic Gaming both down there, going to have to battle their way out for a few rounds. It's just a longer route, let's be honest. A couple of extra best of fives, but nevertheless, Azarin, I mean, it's a mental game down there, isn't it? To get out of the lower bracket and also to gather some momentum. And I feel like when you come out of the lower bracket, especially if you make it to that lower bracket final, you have that additional momentum to really bring it in that grand final.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you first get down there, that first matchup always kind of important. You got to shake the nerves out, get comfortable. But then once you start winning, once you start getting on a roll, you start to get more confidence in yourself, and then you start to look at those matchups. And I think that, you know, for a couple of teams down there, they're no strangers to getting into those positions. It's all just about being able to execute when there's a pressure on the line, and we'll really get to see which teams are the best of the best we'll put in those situations.
We're halfway through our match count for the day, and we're going to throw it to a very, very short break, but don't go anywhere, because when we return in this amazing virtual studio, we're going to have G2 and Space Station going at it. See you in a bit.